Valentine's morning behind a locked door. On the 14th of February 2013, the morning begins inside a gated estate in Pretoria, South Africa. The streets are quiet. The city is still waking up. Inside the house, Oscar Pistorius and Riva Steenkamp are awake. It is Valentine's Day. Steenkamp arrived the evening before. She had brought an overnight bag. She believed the visit marked something meaningful. Friends would later say she hoped the relationship was stabilizing. Messages exchanged in the days leading up to Valentine's Day show affection, but also concern. She had written about wanting to feel safe and respected. Inside the house, signs of preparation are visible. Valentine's gifts are already placed in the bedroom. A quiet morning together seems planned. There is no indication of panic or urgency from the outside. Pistorius is used to control. His life as a professional athlete revolves around routine, precision, and isolation. Steenkamp, by contrast, is expressive and emotionally open. The difference between them has caused tension before. Arguments in the relationship are not unusual. During the early hours of the morning, a conversation begins. It is private. No witnesses are present. The exchange grows heavier. What starts as discussion turns into disagreement. Accusations surface. Emotions escalate behind closed doors. At some point, Steenkamp moves away from the bedroom. She enters the bathroom. The door closes. It is a small room. There is no second exit. Pistorius later claims he feels threatened. He retrieves a firearm from the bedroom. The house remains silent. There are no alarms. No calls are made. Moments later, 4 shots are fired through the locked bathroom door. When the door is finally forced open, Steenkamp is critically injured. Emergency services arrive, but it is too late. She is pronounced dead at the scene. Police note the stillness of the house. Valentine's gifts remain untouched. The bedroom appears orderly. The contrast between the romantic intention of the day and the violence that occurred is unmistakable. The case draws international attention. Court proceedings later dissect every detail. The locked door, the timing, the messages exchanged before Valentine's Day, the meaning of the gifts. The date itself becomes inseparable from the crime. A day associated with intimacy, trust, and affection ends in irreversible loss. Valentine's morning, planned as a moment of closeness, becomes defined by gunfire behind a locked door. Expectations turn deadly. On the 14th of February 2013, Tokyo moves through Valentine's Day with familiar precision. Shops open early. Department stores display carefully wrapped chocolates. In Japan, the day carries a specific social meaning. Women are expected to give gifts. The gesture can signal affection, obligation, or an attempt to repair a relationship. Inside a small apartment, a woman prepares to meet her former partner. Their relationship ended months earlier, but contact never fully stopped. Messages had continued. Questions remained unanswered. Valentine's Day becomes the reason for the meeting. It offers an excuse that feels natural, almost expected. She brings chocolate, not extravagant but deliberate. The choice suggests hesitation rather than celebration. Friends later say she wanted clarity, not romance. She wanted the uncertainty to end. When the former partner arrives, the mood is restrained. Shoes are placed neatly by the door. Coats are hung. They sit across from each other. Conversation begins politely. The exchange feels formal, cautious. The chocolate is placed on the table. The gesture carries weight. In the context of Valentine's Day, it implies more than words. Expectations begin to diverge. As the conversation continues, the emotional gap becomes clear. One side believes the meeting signals reconciliation. The other insists it does not. The date magnifies every sentence. What might have been a casual discussion on another day feels decisive now. Disappointment hardens into frustration. Voices rise slightly, then more sharply. Past grievances surface. Messages are referenced. Assumptions are challenged. The small space amplifies the tension. The argument escalates. Control slips. In a sudden burst of violence, the confrontation turns physical. When emergency services are called, the apartment is quiet again. One person is dead. Investigators later emphasize the role of Valentine's Day itself. The meeting would likely not have taken place without the cultural pressure tied to the date. The expectations surrounding Valentine's Day brought unresolved emotions into close proximity, where they could no longer be contained. A proposal planned at the edge. In February 2019, a young couple travels along the eastern coastline of South Africa. Their destination is a remote, scenic area near Port St. John's, known for its steep cliffs and dramatic ocean views. The trip is not spontaneous. It has been carefully planned. The man carries a ring. He has chosen Valentine's Day for a proposal. The idea is simple and romantic. A natural backdrop, a private moment, a video recording to preserve it forever. Valentine's Day itself does not unfold exactly as planned. Weather conditions and timing interfere. The proposal is postponed by a day. The intention, however, remains unchanged. The meaning of the moment is still tied to Valentine's Day. On the following day, the couple reaches the cliffside location. The ocean below is restless. Waves crash against the rocks. The wind is strong but manageable. The man sets up a camera to record the proposal. He wants the moment documented, framed perfectly. He positions himself carefully, adjusting the angle. The ground near the edge is uneven. Loose gravel mixes with solid rock. He takes a step backward to fit both himself and the view into the frame. The step is misjudged. His footing slips. There is no barrier, no railing. The fall happens instantly. Emergency services are called, but the location is remote. By the time responders arrive, there is nothing they can do. The fall is fatal. Later, investigators recover the camera and the ring. The footage shows preparation, movement, and then sudden disappearance from the frame. The proposal never takes place. Although the accident occurs one day after Valentine's Day, the event remains inseparable from it. The entire plan, the journey, and the intention were built around the holiday. A moment meant to mark commitment and a shared future instead becomes defined by loss at the edge of a cliff. Jealousy turns fatal. On the 14th of February in the early 2010s, a couple meets at a private residence in the United States. The meeting is not accidental. It is arranged specifically because of Valentine's Day. In the days leading up to the date, tension has been building. Messages have gone unanswered. Social media activity has been misinterpreted. Small details have taken on greater meaning. Valentine's Day intensifies everything. The expectation of reassurance, commitment, and exclusivity weighs heavily on both sides. The meeting begins in the afternoon. Gifts are brought. Flowers and cards are placed on a table but remain unopened. The atmosphere is cautious. Polite words are exchanged. There is an effort to keep the conversation calm. As time passes, the real reason for the meeting surfaces. Suspicions of infidelity are voiced. Explanations are demanded. The conversation becomes more direct. Valentine's Day leaves no room for ambiguity. One partner wants clarity, the other resists. Jealousy grows stronger. Past arguments are revisited. Messages are referenced. Assumptions are repeated. The emotional pressure of the day amplifies every accusation. Voices rise. The discussion turns confrontational. What began as a planned Valentine's conversation turns into an argument, fueled by resentment and fear of loss. The escalation happens quickly. Physical violence breaks out. There is no intervention. No one else is present. When police arrive later that day, one partner is dead. Court records later confirm that the meeting was planned specifically because it was Valentine's Day. Investigators note that the expectations attached to the date acted as the catalyst. The confrontation was not spontaneous. It was driven by the belief that Valentine's Day required answers, commitment, and resolution. Instead, it ends with irreversible loss. A Valentine's night behind hotel doors. On the 14th of February 2011, Las Vegas presents itself as a city designed for Valentine's Day. Hotels advertise romance packages. Restaurants are fully booked. Couples arrive with expectations shaped by the date. One couple checks into a hotel room on the Strip during the late afternoon. The booking was made specifically for Valentine's Day. The room includes decorations, roses are placed on the bed, a bottle of champagne sits on ice. The early evening passes without incident. The couple leaves the room briefly, then returns. Alcohol is consumed. Music plays softly. The atmosphere initially feels controlled, even intimate. As the night continues, underlying tension begins to surface. Past arguments resurface gradually. Small remarks carry more weight than usual. Valentine's Day adds pressure. The expectation that the night should be perfect makes disappointment sharper. Alcohol lowers inhibitions. Voices grow louder. The argument intensifies. In a hotel room, there is no neutral space to retreat. The walls are thin, but no one intervenes. The disagreement turns physical. The escalation is sudden. The confined space offers no escape. By the time hotel staff and emergency services are alerted, the situation has already turned fatal. One partner has suffered severe injuries and is pronounced dead. When police enter the room, the Valentine's setting remains intact. Candles are still burning. Roses lie untouched. The champagne bottle is still half full. Investigators later describe the date itself as an amplifying factor. The expectations attached to Valentine's Day intensified emotional volatility. What was meant to be a romantic escape became a closed environment where conflict escalated beyond control. A first date that went too far. On the 14th of February 2015, New York City moves through Valentine's Day at full pace. Restaurants are booked weeks in advance. Bars prepare for crowded nights. For many people, the date carries the pressure of expectation, especially when it involves a first meeting. A young woman agrees to a first date scheduled deliberately for Valentine's Day. The decision feels symbolic. It suggests potential. It also raises the stakes. Friends later recall that she was hesitant but curious, hoping the night would lead to something meaningful. The evening begins with dinner. Conversation flows easily at first. Drinks are ordered. The atmosphere feels festive, shaped by the date itself. Couples around them celebrate. The environment reinforces the idea that the night should be special. As the evening progresses, alcohol consumption increases. Judgment softens. The desire to extend the night grows stronger. The date continues at another location, away from the restaurant crowds. Later, substances beyond alcohol are introduced. The choice is not planned. It happens casually, framed as part of the celebration. The pressure to keep the mood elevated outweighs caution. In the early hours of the 15th of February, the woman becomes unresponsive. Emergency services are called. The atmosphere shifts abruptly from celebration to panic. She is later pronounced dead from an overdose. Investigators determine that there was no intent to cause harm. Friends describe her as careful and responsible in everyday life. The circumstances of Valentine's Day, however, played a significant role. The desire to make the first date memorable, combined with social pressure and lowered inhibitions, contributed to decisions that could not be reversed. Valentine's Day, meant to mark connection and possibility, becomes the context for a night that ends in loss. Fire at a Valentine's Club event. On the 14th of February 2009, Buenos Aires prepares for a long Valentine's night. Clubs across the city advertise themed events. Decorations promise romance. Attendance is high. One nightclub announces a special Valentine's celebration. The venue fills quickly. By late evening, the number of guests exceeds the intended capacity. Inside, movement becomes restricted. Music is loud. Lighting is low. The Valentine's theme shapes the interior. Candles are placed on tables. Fabric decorations hang from walls and ceilings. Heart-shaped ornaments line walkways. The atmosphere feels festive, intimate, and dense. As the night progresses, the crowd grows warmer. Ventilation is limited. People continue to enter. Staff struggle to manage the flow. At some point, a fire breaks out inside the club. The exact source is never fully confirmed. Flames spread rapidly through the decorative materials. Smoke fills the space within seconds. Panic erupts. Guests push toward exits. Visibility drops. Some stumble. Others fall. The narrow layout creates bottlenecks. Shouts turn into screams. Emergency services arrive, but access is difficult. The evacuation is chaotic. Several people die during the attempt to escape. Investigations later reveal multiple safety violations: overcrowding, blocked exits, flammable decorations. The Valentine's theme itself becomes part of the official findings, as the decorative materials significantly accelerated the spread of fire. What was marketed as a romantic celebration collapses into confusion and loss within minutes.